So in this lesson, we're going to be learning about variables. So what are variables? Now you may be familiar with the math construct of a variable, which that would be just a letter or a symbol representing a number. And the same is kind of true in programming. So variables are used by the computer to store information that is to be referenced and manipulated in a computer program. Variables also provide a way of labeling data with a descriptive name so our programs can be understood more clearly by other developers and ourselves. So in layman's terms, a variable is just a little bit of space that the computer sets aside to store a value or a piece of information. So whenever I'm teaching computer science and I'm teaching this particular topic, I like to think of a variable in the following manner. That being to think of a variable as a container. So on the right, we have a container. We've put this label called greeting on it. And inside of the variable, we've just put this little piece of paper with the word hello written on it. So this is kind of analogous to the idea of a variable called greeting containing the value hello. So how can we actually create variables and store data within a Python program? So this is the syntax. You have your variable name on the left, greeting. You have an equal sign, also called the assignment operator, and then you have the value you want to assign to the variable on the left. So in this case, we're creating a variable called greeting. We're using the equal sign to assign it the value hello. And it's the same on the right. We have our variable called greeting as shown by the label, and then in it we have this piece of paper with the word hello written on it. So the value of this variable is hello. Again, one more time, the general syntax is the name, an equal sign, and then the piece of data you want to store in the variable on the left. And now the next part is actually how can we display a variable's value to the user of our program? And that's pretty simple actually. So again, we have the same thing. We have our variable greeting, we've assigned it the value hello, and then right below it we have a print statement. We call our print statement by calling the function name print. We have an open parenthesis followed by a closing parenthesis. And in between the parentheses, we have the name of the variable we created on the line above it. In this case, it would be greeting. So when we run this, we would get hello as an output. However, an important thing to note is if you enclose the word greeting inside of quotation marks, Python is going to interpret that as a string literal, and it's literally going to print the word greeting instead of the value of the variable greeting. So again, right here, we have our function name, print. We have an open parenthesis, the word greeting, or whatever your variable's name is, followed by a closing parenthesis. Let's take a look at this in the editor. Alright, so we're back here in PyCharm. As you can see, I'm still on Unit 1, Lesson 2. So what I want to do is I want to make a new folder within my directory. So I'm going to right-click. I'm going to hover over New, Directory. We'll call this Unit 2. And then I'm going to right-click on Unit 2 as well. And we're going to make a new Python file. So File, we'll call this lesson1.py. Okay. So there's our definition of a variable. Now, how can we actually create our variable? Well, again, we have to create our variable by assigning it a name. So in this case, we're just going to create a variable called my name, and we're going to set it equal to Luigi. So now if I wanted to actually print this variable's value, I would just say print, and then in between the parentheses, I would do my name, and I would save it. I'm going to go edit my configuration so I can actually run this. We're going to create a new configuration. This is going to be a Python configuration. So this is U2L1. So script path, we'll just locate this. Unit 2, Lesson 1. And we will apply and hit OK. We'll come up here, U2L1, and run it. So you see it prints out Luigi, which is good. However, let's do this. Let's enclose what should have been the variable's name inside of quotes. So now when I save and run this, if I run it again, you see it literally prints out my name because it's going to interpret that as a string literal. So I want to ask another question, and that is, why do we use variables within our code? The answer being, we want to be able to easily store and access information quickly within our program, and variables allow us to do just that. So there's a couple naming conventions you should follow in Python. Firstly, that variable names should not take the name of existing functions in Python. For instance, if you had a variable, if you assigned a variable the name print, Python would recognize this, but it's not good programming convention because you might confuse your variable with the function print, and other developers might also do this. They should be short and specific. They can't start with numbers or symbols. If the variable name is more than one word long, you should use camel casing, where the first word is all lowercase, and every word after the first one should have its first letter capitalized. So let's look at some. So these are all really good variable names. They're specific. If they're more than one word, they're camel cased. They describe what the contents of the variable should be. However, compared to these aren't really specific. These don't really tell you what the variable is doing, or what its purpose really is. So variables are stored within our computer's memory. That's a really important idea to know. So the computer allocates or sets aside a certain amount of memory based on the type of data within the variable. And that leads us into our next lesson, which is going to talk all about data types, and we're also going to look at how we can convert between different data types and how much space they take up, and we're just going to focus on those for a little bit.